go. Unfreaking believable. Unbelievable. I gotta be honest with you, that game drove me nuts. I cannot believe the Buccaneers lost that game. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Tough one. Man, that was an absolute laser from Cooch, wasn't it?
What a crazy game. The Bulls are bowl-bound for the third season in a row. An incredible performance.
But listen, we know the competition. They did what they had to do.
No more silver linings. No more moral victories. It was put up or shut up time. And boy, did they rise to the occasion.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Yes, and you know what? Dolan, right off the rip, a little cold today. Love it. Yes, bro, I feel, and I look out the window right now, and I see the wind blowing. Listen, we canceled practice last night, so I went to the USF game. We already canceled the practice for tonight because it's going to be like 38 degrees, and it rained all night. It's just one of those nights where it's probably best you stay inside. And I swear to God, I feel like, you know what? It's every time I complain about being cold living in the state of Florida, I feel I'm ashamed. I really am. I'm ashamed from a kid that grew up in New York, and I went to college in Oswego where there was 15 feet of snow in 3 days. I mean, you walked outside, you couldn't even see around you. To ever say that I'm cold here, I feel so bad. I feel so embarrassed. And this isn't a morning of embarrassment because I'm just like, damn, it's so freaking cold. But it is what it is, man. We love living here in the Tampa Bay area, and I love being here with you guys. Hope everybody is well. Happy Thursday. We are one day closer to the weekend. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe as well. A big thank you to our partners, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, and of course, EverHealth. We have the EverHealth Injury Report with Dr. Carlos Rodriguez at 12:30. The Braden Point injury we'll discuss. We'll discuss a bunch of different injuries across kind of the sports landscape. And now that the Bucs season is over, we're going to talk about injuries in a bunch of other sports, including the injury to Kayla Harrison, the UFC fighter who had to bow out of the main event of UFC 324 against Amanda Nunes, which is arguably the biggest fight in women's MMA history. So we'll talk about that as well. And there's just so much to get into. Can't wait to chat with Doc at 12:30 today. Shout out to Honest Hammer. He's in the house. He's here. Shout out to my guy, Russ. The wind is blowing today, DT. You got that right. You're right, pal. My blood has certainly thinned out. Sean. Sup, Jay? Yeah, I'm from Queens, but it's chilly outside, bro. Better button down your hairpiece today, Rick and crew. You got that right. All right, what do we have coming up on the program today? Huge news in the National Football League as late last night, John Harbaugh and the Giants agreed a deal. Selfishly, as a kid that grew up as a huge New York Giants fan, and it's a team that's near and dear to the heart of everybody, in my family, I think this is a great thing for the Giants. You want to try to restore them back. They need somebody like that at the helm. They need an adult in the room. I think this is a great thing for the New York Football Giants and Jackson Dart and Cam Scatteraboo and Malik Neighbors. And I'm sure Dexter Lawrence and that defensive line is kind of jumping for joy as well. But how does that affect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I'm going to tell you how here in a couple of minutes. And then I was over at the Yuengling Center last night, and there's something special going on there with the USF men's basketball team. And I'm not just saying this because Brian Hodgson was giving me crap during the post game, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. But there's something special going on. I'm telling you, man, it's a different vibe. And I'm going to tell you my 2 cents, and this is why you go to games, because this is not something that you can glean from watching this team on television. 1 o'clock, our guy Tim Benz is going to join us from Trib Live, from Fox Sports PGH. For all the people that say Mike Tomlin here in Tampa after Todd Bowles, Tim Benz, if you remember, we've had him on the show before. He was one of those guys, one of the vocal, I guess, minority, questioning Mike Tomlin. and saying, like, people in Pittsburgh are, it's enough is enough. They haven't won a playoff game since 2017. Like, think about it. So I wouldn't be so quick to jump on the Tomlin train when, we're talking about going from Bowles to Tomlin. And there you go. We'll discuss that with him at 1 o'clock. And then we'll finish at 1:30 with our pal Eddie Encina from the Tampa Bay Times. The Lightning at practice right now as we speak at Benchmark International Arena. They're in action tomorrow night against the Blues in St. Louis. So we will go from there. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen. And if you want to chime in, if you want to call in, using your phone or your laptop, there is the link right there in the chat. Just click on it. Very, very simple. StreamYard.com/WECM52WKR7. Adam Kershaw in the World Baseball Classic, Team USA, giving Dream Team vibes. This will be his last hurrah, his swan song. Maybe get some outs against some left-handed pitching. I think it's pretty cool. Naresh Kanan. Hi from India. Awesome. Naresh, thank you, man. This is awesome. Thank you so much. The moisture in the air makes it bone-chilling cold. You got that right, pal. Michael, notice Connor Geek was held out of the crunch game last night. Should mean he's getting the call-up. I heard that Connor Geek is actually not 100%, so I don't know so much about that. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Dolan, our next coach must be a young offensive-minded guy. I think going to Tomlin is going from mediocrity to mediocrity. We'll talk about that with Tim Benz at 1 o'clock. All right, so the big news late last night, and I stayed up super late. Did anybody else have Verizon yesterday? I mean, my God, it was such a freaking cluster bleep. Isn't it? Like, sometimes I'm okay to curse, and some other days I'm like, just not. Today it's like cluster bleep. I'd say cluster on maybe on other days. But I had Verizon yesterday. So as soon as I left here, right, I was going to text Tom Ponzo and text Ian all the things we were going to talk about in the Beckles and Recher podcast. And what a great podcast we had yesterday. You can catch it right here on my channel. Dude, I left here and I was like, and I remember when this happened a couple months ago. And it was after the late, great Tony Saladino's funeral, driving back from there. I'm like, what's wrong with my phone? And I drove all the way to the Verizon store. They're like, yeah, this is a national outage. And I'm like, no, you've got to be kidding me. So when I saw that happen yesterday, I didn't need anybody to tell me what was going on. I knew here we are. Here we go again. How long is this going to last? So yesterday I'm like, geez, man, what the hell are we going to do? How the hell are we going to get through today? It's so weird how it stops everything you're going to do. I had to cancel practice. I forgot to cancel two people. I forgot to text two parents. So I had to drive back from the cafe with Wi-Fi to here so I could text them. They were already at the field. Then I go to USF. I try to sign on the laptop with the Wi-Fi. They send you a code to your phone. My phone's not working. I have to send it to. It was just one of those days. It was one of those days. It was crazy. So I was up late finishing all my work. And then as I'm watching Duke in California, which was a game that started, I think at 11:05 on the ACC network. And it was cool because Ken Jong was there and Steph Curry, Del Curry, Seth Curry, Carlos Boozer was there. Scottie Pippen was there. It was really cool. But the big news that we saw at the bottom of the screen last night was that John Harbaugh and the New York Giants were closing in on a deal. And again, selfishly, as a kid that grew up as a diehard Giants fan, I just thought the Giants are one of those teams. The NFL is so different in sports when it comes to that because there's those old school teams that they've been around forever, and the sport is better when they're good. The Steelers, the Packers, the Bears, the Giants, when those four teams that have been around seemingly forever, when they're in the thick of things, it provides a different layer of fandom and a different level of excitement and a different level of attention. Listen, the Bears, especially beating the Packers in the first round of the playoffs, like you could see that. Like there are people that you didn't even know were Bears fans, and now they're popping up out of nowhere. And it's like, oh shit, look at them. Oh shit, look at them. Like they're a Bears fan, but they're passionate. And they've been through the ups and downs, and they've been clamoring for the success and the excitement that they saw back in the mid 80s and late 80s with Jim McMahon and Refrigerator Perry and Walter Payton and all those guys, right? Still, to this day, one of the greatest defenses of all time, if not the greatest defense of all time. So now that they're back, and they're in the thick of things, there's, again, a different level of excitement. I said this last year too about the Knicks. Love them or hate them, when the Knicks are involved, it's different. And because we haven't seen them be one of the Final Four teams in the National Basketball Association, people are like, wow. You see Knicks fans come out of nowhere. You see people, I hate those. I made that comparison a couple of days ago. I said Bears fans are about as obnoxious as the Knicks fans. The bing bong, right? Like, it's the same thing. You're like, oh, shit. Trust me, I know. I grew up a Knicks fan. I got a lot of friends that are Bears fans. But that's what's great about sports. These fans of franchises that have been taken forever to get back to the top of the mountain, and they're climbing. They're in the middle of the journey right now. But to be able to see that, John Harbaugh going to the Giants, I immediately was happy. And then you think about the ramifications for how it affects the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the first thing that came to my mind, and now we're seeing it this morning, was, what does this mean for Todd Monken? Todd Monken, once again, interviews for the offensive coordinator spot with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just like he did in 2023. And just like he's doing right now, it looks like he's spurning the Buccaneers to stay with John Harbaugh or go with John Harbaugh. He went to the Ravens back in 23, and it looks like he's going to join the Giants and take over that offense and be able to kind of put his fingerprints on a unit that's led by Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy. And we'll see if Wan'Dale Robinson comes back. I don't think he does, but of course, Malik Neighbors on the outside. They have a really good draft pick. Do they add to their defense? Right? The Giants, and I just saw this on social media this morning, a lot of people think that the Giants in 2026 can be like what the Patriots were in 2025. That Harbaugh can have a very similar impact to Mike Vrabel. The Giants have a lot of talent. I've been saying this all year long. The Giants just need leadership. Look at the defensive line. You got Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, right? You have some incredible players. You got Javon Holland. They got some really good players on the defensive side. They got Bobby Okereke. Like, they have good players on each level of the defensive line. And their offensive line, that has been as bad as it's been the last 6-7 years, they were actually middle of the pack this year. So you look around like, where did it all go wrong? Coaching, trying to coach guys up, and depth. Because once those guys got hurt, they were in big trouble. Paulson Debo goes down the corner. Javon Holland goes down the safety. Both those guys went down in that game against the Denver Broncos where Bo Nix led a historic comeback. That's what happens. You need depth. So Todd Monken, does he go with John Harbaugh? It looks like it. And I've been saying this for the last couple of days, if you've been listening here on the show. I don't think that Todd Monken is a good fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't. Because when you look at the offense and what Todd Monken likes to do, even when he was here with the Bucs, he liked to push the ball down the field. No risk it, no biscuit. He fit in with what Jameis Winston was doing, with what Mike Evans and Chris got. That's not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a guy you want to get the ball out of his hands quickly. He's not a big guy, right? Short to intermediate throws. You're better as an offense with Baker as your quarterback if you stay balanced. Run the football 30 times. That's why it was a goal for Josh Grizzard. And I gave you the numbers last week. This Buccaneers team lost 2 games in the previous 2 years. They lost 3 this year. But before that, they lost 2 games total with Canales and Cohen when they ran the ball 30 times. That's why Grizzard looked at that and said, that's where we were at. That's where we need to be. And that is why, if you gave me my choice, it would be Mike McDaniel over Todd Monken, 7 days a week and twice on football Sunday. And I know Mike McDaniel is interviewing for these other head coaching jobs, but what we've seen and what we've heard from Greg Allman from Fox Sports, our good pal, Mike McDaniel will take a better job as an offensive coordinator if the situation is better than just be a head coach somewhere. And I look at it and I'm kind of confused with the whole Tennessee Titans thing. When you look at the game, like, Cam Ward looks okay, right? But would you have Cam Ward or Tyler Shuck? Would you have Cam Ward or Jackson Dart from what we've seen last year? I don't know, man. I'm not so put my stamp down. Like, if you're Mike McDaniel, you're looking at Cam Ward and going, yeah, that's where I want to be in Tennessee. I don't know. And I really don't think that people are scared away because Todd Bowles' seat is as hot as anybody's in 2026. If I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm looking at the Buccaneers job going, I'm going to take this job. I'm going to kick ass on offense with Baker and Bucky and Mike, and if he comes back, Chris and Emeka and J-Mac and all these other guys. I'm going to kick ass next year, regardless of what happens. Okay? I think it's a win-win situation if you're Mike McDaniel. It's a win-win situation if you come to the Buccaneers. If you do really, really, I just don't see how he's not going to do well. Because he's going to do well with all those weapons. He has more weapons here than he had in Miami. And they had some good ones there with Achan and Tyreek Hill before he got banged up and Jalen Waddle. But I think we can all agree that Baker's better than Tua. And the depth-wise for the wide receivers is better. The offensive line is going to be better. Those guys are going to have that continuity. So there's a really, really good chance that he's going to do well next year. So it means one of two things. One, he does really well. The team does really well. And he stays on. And he impresses. And if Todd Bowles stays, then he gets a better job next year. He has his choice this year in 2026. There's no rush. He is that gifted of an offensive mind. They put up 70 freaking points a couple of years ago against the Denver Broncos. Think about that. So if he doesn't like the choices right now as a head coach, go be the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bro, you're going to be here in the state of Florida, beautiful weather. He's going to love it here. We're going to love him. Let's say the other option happens. The Bucs crap the bed. The defense stinks. Todd Bowles gets fired. This is the easiest promotion that the Buccaneers will make in their freaking history. Easier than Dirk Cutter, easier than Raheem Morris, easier than any other coaching decision that they'll ever make, because they're going to take that young man and say, here you go. Your offense was badass. You have already done this before. Boom, 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 boom. Nobody's even going to bat an eye. And as much, I think a lot is made of Mike McDaniel and his offense and what it's been able to do with Miami Dolphins, what it's been able to do with Tua Tagovailoa, but not enough has been mentioned when we're discussing Mike McDaniel, what happened with the Miami Dolphins at the end of the year. Tua goes down, Quinn Ewers goes in. This was as lame duck of a coach that there was in the NFL last year. You lose your star wide receiver. Tua is out. Right? You trade Jalen Phillips, right? Look at all these different things that have happened to the Miami Dolphins. Again, I'll go into it one more time. Tua is down, right? You have Quinn Ewers. Tyreek Hill gets banged up. You trade Jalen Phillips. You fire the general manager, Chris Greer. So everything is all set in a row of Mike McDaniel's not going to make it through the season. He's a lame duck. And what does the Miami Dolphins do? With all of those things happen, they battle their ass off. They did not give in. Mike McDaniel didn't give in. I was as impressed with the Miami Dolphins down the stretch as any team in the National Football League. What does that tell you? That tells you that guy makes sure that those guys have energy and juice. Does that sound familiar? Jason Pierre-Paul was brought in the last couple weeks of the season because Todd Bowles' team didn't have energy and juice. Not our words. Larry Foote, outside linebacker coach, he said that. We brought in a guy off our couch because we didn't have energy and juice. Go look at Mike McDaniel and a bunch of guys on that team that don't have a Super Bowl on their resume. Energy, juice, nothing to play for. That to me means just as much as how good of an offensive play caller he is. Now, is that going to make as much difference as an OC than as it does as a head coach? Maybe not. But it makes me feel a whole hell of a lot better in 2027 if they end up making that move where Todd goes out and McDaniel goes in. I don't see how this is a bad thing for anybody involved. And if I'm the Buccaneers, you interview this man tomorrow at One Buccaneer Place. There's no freaking way that you let him out of the building without letting him know that he is the number one option. No messing around. We've been having this conversation all week about the Buccaneers. I'm done with the fire Todd Bowles thing. It's over, guys. It's over. He's staying on. Change the narrative. Stop typing the shit. Just get over it. What kind of Buccaneer fan are you? I started the show with this yesterday. Are you a team that's saying, I want them to suck so Todd Bowles leaves? Or are you saying, all right, well, screw it. I may not agree with it, but I bleed red and pewter. Figure this shit out. Give me something to cheer for in 2026. Well, all right, here we go. This is one way that the Buccaneers can feel a lot better going into next season. You will feel a lot better going into 2026 if the Buccaneers hire Mike McDaniel for this offense. And you say, all right, Todd, this is your last chance. This is your last gasp, because he's not going to get another job after this as a head coach. I don't think he gives two craps about the future of like, oh, I might be hiring my replacement. You can't worry about things like that. Why does that matter? Who cares? Because at the end, if that's the case, you're gone anyway. That doesn't mean anything. You got to put together the greatest coaching staff of all time right now to save your ass. Who cares if it costs you? It doesn't matter because you'll be gone anyway. And you'll have millions of dollars in the bank. Todd will ride off into the sunset. He'll have a sunset. He'll have a Super Bowl ring. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Mike McDaniel is the first piece to making Buccaneers fans feel better about going into 2026. You got to make it happen. Mike McDaniel to the Bucs. Fingers crossed. All right. Last night, I was over at the Yuengling Center, and to be able to watch what – hold on, sorry, guys. All right. To be able to watch what Coach Brian Hodgson is doing over there with USF men's basketball, there's something special brewing at the YC. And here's why. When I watch this team, and this is the first time I've been able to watch them in person. I've watched them on TV pretty much every game this year. They have a lot of talent offensively. They get up and down the court. We know that they can shoot the basketball with anybody. I mean, look at Enos and Pinion. They're freaking incredible. But they play so hard. And Coach Hodgson always mentions the TNT. Takes no talent plays. And you see guys last night diving on the floor, loose balls, 50-50 balls, interior boxing guys out. I mean, the big dude on the other team last night was incredible. And the way that Isaiah was trying to position himself, and he was giving up maybe a little bit of height, but certainly some pounds as well. But the way that the team was able to help him when the big man got the ball inside, that is just, that's what you want to see from your team, because shots are not always going to fall. You're not going to have your best night from three. But that relentlessness, that team effort, that's something that you can never, ever, ever not have. And Coach Hodgson did not look pleased last night because some of the execution was not crisp. And some of the shots were not falling. And sometimes you get into a point where you're playing to the clock and you're playing to the score instead of just playing your game. And that it's going to take some time for this team to learn that. But I love that Coach Hodgson is on these guys. And the fact that it really wasn't that close of a game, and I think they may have played their C-plus game last night. Shots still are not falling. I still think they're trying to find their way. I mean, the rotation, they played 11 guys last night. It's going to take a little while for them to kind of figure out. But the one thing that you cannot question is that this team plays their butts off. And I say this a lot when we're talking about sports. You want to be able to be proud of the teams that you support. You want to be able to be proud of the effort. And that's why I think one of the things with the Tampa Bay Lightning is you are so proud to say that you're a member of Bolts Nation, because you're so proud of what the team has done on the ice, what Jeff Finnick and the crew have done off the ice. That's what this USF men's basketball team is all about. You're proud watching the effort and the guys diving and the way that they share the basketball. It's exciting, alley-oops and threes, and they're relentless. And I still don't think they're playing their best ball. And Coach Brian Hodgson last night was telling us, I want a team that's going to peak at the end of February and in March. That's what you want to hear. He's got such high expectations. He's setting the bar higher and higher and higher there at USF. I'm telling you, man, just if you can get a chance to go to a game and they play Sunday at 2:00 against Wichita State, it was a pretty good crowd last night. Go usfbulls.com. Go check those guys out. And of course, selfishly, I love Coach Brian Hodgson because he was giving me grief in the post-game press conference last night. And I'm going to post it on my social media. I asked the question, somebody else asked the question, and then he goes, what did we do to deserve this honor that you get to come cover our game? I'm like, here we go. Here we go with this guy. And I go, I've been out of town. He goes, for 3 months? He was like, I thought you weren't going to be here until after the Super Bowl. I'm like, Coach, come on, man. You're killing me. You're killing me. I said, bro, I coached 3 baseball teams, man. Come on, man. Like, it's tough. It's tough to get out there. But since practice got canceled last night, somebody was like, oh, you have the night off. I'm like, I do not have the night off. I'm going to watch USF men's basketball. So there you go, Coach. I'm there for you, and I'm there for the Bulls. Gotta love him, man. Really, really good stuff. Our guy Gio's in the house. What's up, pal?
Hey, what's up, brother? Can you hear me okay?
I can. What do you got for me, man?
Well, I got a couple things. First of all, I got a shout out to your boy John Momola and Benny listening. I know that they're legends in the Tampa community, so I want to say hi to them. USF men's basketball. Here's why. By the way, the first place USF men's basketball team. We're on top of the standings right now, and I know we're not playing our best ball, but these guys are coming together. They're gelling. They're going to be gelling. They're going to be there at the tournament time, which is really important. But here's something that is really important. The USF American Conference basketball has changed this year. If you're the 1 or the 2 seed, you get buys in the tournament all the way to the semifinals.
Yeah.
Also, that tournament is at UAB, okay? And also, if you're the 3rd and 4th seed, you get buys into the quarterfinals. The point is if we can continue to play well, get a 1 and 2 seed, we would only have to win 2 games to win the American Conference and get that automatic bid. Now, I know you're a USF basketball historian, and I'm going to go back a little bit. Dominic Jones, who was an NBA player, won a ring with the Dallas Mavericks, and Chris Youngblood are the best 2 players I've ever seen play at USF. I couldn't go old school like with the Bradley guy.
Bradley, yeah.
Is Isaiah Nelson already starting to be in that conversation as one of the greatest USF men's players ever? And also, he's in line. I think he's going to be the American Conference Player of the Year, and I think he's a draftable player. He's got an NBA body with NBA skills. I love the guy. And also, I've never seen a kid play basketball at that level with the enthusiasm that he has, interacting with the crowd, his players, and also coach. I'll tell you what, I'm about 2 rows behind where the bench is. I can hear Coach during timeouts. He gets so pissed. I remember in a game earlier this year, we were down like a 9-0 run to the other team. He calls timeout. He's using some choice words, but after he gives you some Bobby Knight attitude, he'll be the first guy to give you a high five, slap you on the butt, and say, "Way to go, brother." And that's what I liked about him. He demands excellence. He didn't get it last night, and he's still reading the guys out. But after it's all said and done, he is the players' biggest fans. Right. And this team is deep, man. Enos has had a couple of unbelievable games. Pinion, when he gets hot, watch out. And Nelson dominates the game, and I love how he plays. And, of course, my favorite player is still my old school boy, C.J. Brown, who, for somebody his size, can absolutely get up and make some highlight film dunks. But I'm fired up. Jay Recher, I am going to throw something out for you. It's a couple months early, but I have a seat available. I am driving up to Birmingham, Alabama with Nick, my son, one of my boys, Connor. We got an open seat. We would drive you up there, and I would take care of the hotels, and you can hang out and watch the American Conference Tournament. I'm going to leave that seat open until you say no, brother. Hey, thanks for taking my call. And go Bulls.
I appreciate it, Gio. All over it, man. I'll let you know for sure, because obviously my schedule depends on the baseball side, man. Coach Jay over here. But Isaiah Nelson, I don't know if I'd put him up there as far as one of the best Bulls, but man, he might be one of the best big men that we've seen in the last decade. No doubt about it. What we've been able to see with him and how good that he's been with this team. He's a double-double machine every single night. And listen, last night he was giving up some size. And I love the battle. I love the compete level. And I say this about USF, and that's all you can really ask for. They give you everything they've got. And it's a very, very fun team to watch. And it's a very, very fun chat to have every single Thursday at 12:30 with our guy, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez. Doc, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Better than the weather, my friend. It's one of those dreary days. We don't have many of these in the Tampa Bay area, but we kind of got to live with it, right, buddy?
We deal with them.
No doubt about it. All right, let's jump right in. This is obviously the big story of the week when it comes to Tampa Bay sports, and that's the injury to Braden Point. I sent it over to you. Now we know that, and I've kind of gone through everything, so I've heard a lot of different things. You and I were kind of going back and forth about this as well. We're hearing that it's not the worst case scenario. So worst case scenario would be ACL out for the year. We won't see him till next season. Still not great. John Cooper said it's going to be weeks, and he said as of now he's week to week. Now, we know that the Olympics are coming up in February. We know that, Braden Point is on that team. I know it's tough to speculate, Doc, but I want to give everybody, because I've been kind of touting this segment all week talking about Braden Point. What are kind of some of the possibilities for Braden Point? What could he have? And does this kind of eliminate him from contention for the Olympics, even if it's the best case scenario?
Well, when you first showed me the video and I looked at it, I was concerned about his MCL. I thought his MCL was torn. Then the concern is there an ACL along with the MCL? So that's a medial collateral ligament. It's the ligament in the inside of your knee. So basically, defensive player collapsed on the outside of his knee and it opens up the inside of the knee. I think the fact that they are on skates was a good thing because you can see that actually his skate gives and slides as the injury occurs. So I think that may have saved the ligament from completely being torn. If he was on ground and he had been planted, that ligament, I think, would have given up. But I think the fact that they're on skates and there's a slide and a little give on the ice is a blessing. So the fact now the coach says he's week to week, then base case scenario is a grade 1 sprain of the medial collateral ligament.
This is best
on
case
average,
scenario.
Best case scenario.
Okay.
On average, 14 days. To return to play on a grade 1 isolated MCL sprain. Next case scenario, grade 2 sprain, where there's a partial tear of the ligament, you're looking at about 30 days on average when it comes to return to play. Grade 3 is, I think if it had been a grade 3, which is a complete tear, they would not list him week to week because that's usually a 6 to 8 week, even a 3-month type of mark. So I think grade 3, I think it's out of the question. The question is whether it's a grade 1 or 2. So we're looking anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks as far as recovery time. The average time lost for all MCL injuries across the board is about 23 days. So look at it really at about a 3-week period. So with the Olympics being about a month out, I think there's a little bit of a ray of light. I think there's a little bit of hope that he could be ready for the Olympics a month out. It all depends on how well he does in his recovery week to week, how well he's doing on skates. The problem is when you're skating, there's a lot of stress on the inside part of your knee because as you push off with the inside of your foot, there's a lot of stress on the inside of your knee. So it depends on really comfort when he's skating and comfort on the ice. But I think there's a little bit of a possibility that we could see him at the Olympics because it's about a month out.
Yeah, and we know as of now, Braden Point not placed on injured reserve. And John Cooper just said earlier today, nothing new. And this is about 10 minutes ago. John Cooper said nothing new on Braden Point after seeing team doctors. And he said to ask that question in the next 10 to 14 days. So maybe they really did avert the worst case scenario. And maybe with a guy like Braden Point, like you said, with the skates, maybe this is the best case scenario. And not only does he have a chance of being a factor down the stretch for the Tampa Bay Lightning, maybe he isn't out of the woods as far as, maybe he does have a chance of playing for Team Canada.
I agree. I think there is a chance. I think the Lightning are very hopeful looking at the injury and now knowing the information that Coach Cooper is talking about that week to week. And I go back and look at it and I see the little give of the skate. I don't see the complete collapse of the inside of the knee. I hope he's a grade 1 sprain and he's back in a couple of weeks and he's able to practice skate and make the Olympics. I think a grade 2 is a little bit of a close call because that's about a 4-week timeline for recovery. And I think that puts him out of the Olympics, but it may be good for the Lightning as far as the season goes because he could be back in a month or 6 weeks. So we'll see.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this real quick, Benny, one of our main guys here. Can you please ask Dr. Rod about taking zinc supplements? What have you heard about zinc supplements?
So zinc supplements are actually good for recovery, muscle recovery. There's some good evidence. I'm not going to say great evidence, but there's some good evidence that it helps in cell recovery and helps in muscle recovery.
Right.
So, I mean, certainly there's no dangers in taking it as a supplement. So there's no adverse effects. So if there's a little bit of benefit without any adverse effects, it should be fine.
Our guy Chan here with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. I was afraid I would miss the Evara Health report. Thank goodness I did not. Happy Thursday, everyone. No way. And of course, we save every single one of our Evara Health injury reports right here on the YouTube channel. And we send them out on social media. So if you ever miss it, you can go back. We've saved every single one and we will continue to do so. Our guy David Terry, Dr. Rod is the best. You got that right, my friend. Now, Buccaneers season's over. And we're going to do some other injuries and other sports too. We'll get back to the football here in a second. But I wanted to ask you about Kayla Harrison. She is one of the most incredibly gifted wrestlers in the history of female combat sports. She's made the change over to MMA. And now she was so big, they didn't even have a weight class for her in the UFC for years. And there was a huge fight coming up next week. It was supposed to be next Saturday at UFC 324 against Amanda Nunes, who a lot of people think is the greatest MMA fighter of all time. And now, no Kayla Harrison. She has pulled out because she had surgery on her neck, right, Doc? Is that cool? So give us an update on that. And, I mean, anytime we talk about surgery with the neck, I mean, you got to be careful. So what do we know about the surgery and what was wrong? And, I mean, is this going to inhibit her from fighting in the future?
So not a lot of information out there as far as the neck injury goes or the surgery that he had. But if I'm going to make a guess, it's likely a disc issue. That's the most common issue that you have on the neck, especially in people that do a lot of lifting, wrestling, MMA. You can have some little small herniations around the disc of the neck.
Is that upper neck, Doc? So for her.
Yeah. So they didn't disclose where. Okay. If I'm going to take a guess as where. Usually the lower neck is the most common area, what we call, there's 7 cervical vertebrae. So C5, C6, C6, C7. So the lower part of the neck is usually where most of those herniations occur. Best case scenario, they're already saying she's out at least 6 months. So if she had what we call a microdiscectomy, which is basically going in there and taking the little piece of the disc that is herniated, and that's it, they're usually looking at about 8 weeks recovery time. And then you have the rehabilitation on the process, that everything that comes with it. If it's more of a larger disc herniation and they have to remove a large portion of this or even replace the disc with an artificial disc, then yes, that puts us closer to that 6-month mark. I don't think that if they were doing any caging or any hardware, we would be looking at 6 months. It could be longer. So I don't think there's any instrumentation as far as any cage or any hardware being put in there. So I think it's more of a small disc, a small herniation. She was symptomatic from it, may have been causing not just pain, but maybe a little bit of weakness. Usually we don't intervene on a lot of herniations on the neck unless there's motor symptoms. So maybe she was experiencing some motor symptoms such as weakness. And then at that point, you do have to intervene. If it's just mostly pain and sensory problems, we don't usually do intervention. We usually do physical therapy and conservative management for that. So I'm thinking that there was enough issues there that she was having motor symptoms. So as she's having motor symptoms, then you go ahead and intervene. So I would say if it's a microdiscectomy, 8 weeks as far as recovery, she should be okay to come back. So they're giving her about 6 months. So it should be fine for her to come back to MMA.
Doc, did you ever hear the story of Kurt Angle, the wrestler from 1996? So Kurt Angle he won a gold medal in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, and he ended up going into the WWE and becoming a pretty good professional wrestler. But the big story about Kurt Angle is that he won the gold medal in 1996 with a broken neck. And I want you to hear what he had. He had 4 broken vertebrae in his neck, 2 discs sticking directly into the spinal cord that they had to cut.
Wow.
He had a badly bruised spinal cord, and he said if your spinal cord ever gets bruised, you're close to getting paralysis. And they had to shoot him up with 12 shots of Novocaine before he got into the ring or before he got onto the mat and started wrestling. Like, when you get a chance on your free time, go look up the Kurt Angle story, because me and you, when we talk about neck injuries, and I think about I don't know if anybody's ever come as close as he has to really paralyzing himself.
Yeah, permanently injured. Yeah,
because when you hear me say those things, like, those are right. I mean, that's crazy, man. I mean, we have to be so careful with our neck and our spinal cord, man. And he was really playing a dangerous game there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, especially, if you're looking at the fractures, fractures, it always depends on where the fractures are at. Mm-hmm. But if there's severe herniations and there's bruising to the spinal cord along with that, that's really tough. I know that we're talking about 20 years ago or so. So maybe the doctors were a little bit different when it came to clearing people up to play. I don't know that you would see that these days.
No, probably not, my friend. Probably not at all. I want to ask you about another injury that I saw firsthand, and that's Fred Warner for the San Francisco 49ers, the linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the game. And I said it before, when this gentleman got injured at Raymond James Stadium months ago against the Bucs, I thought it was just so nice that both teams got off the sideline to show him some love. And that really, it's sad when a guy gets injured, but when you see that respect from his colleagues, like, I just thought it was one of those things that I'll take with me for the rest of my career, because it doesn't happen for everybody. Like, people are nice, but it just shows the kind of reverence that they have for Fred Warner. And a lot of people thought, out for the year, we're not going to see him. What are the chances that we do see Fred Warner this weekend? Because it might sound like wishful thinking, Doc, but I don't know, man.
So, he had a fractured dislocation of the ankle. So think the Chris Godwin injury, which took 10 months for Godwin to come back. So this happened October, 3 months ago. So, I watched the video of him in practice, and he was running, he was cutting, he was doing some drills. Wow. He did the sleigh. Now, it's a lot different in practice than it is come game time. So how ready is this ankle, the hardware that they have to put in there 3 months out? We know that Chris came back, and then he had the injury again, and the possible stress injury to the area that kept him out for even a little longer.
Right.
So that's the risk here. If you bring him too early and that bone's not completely healed up, you risk a bigger injury and longer time out. Now, it is the playoffs, so we're looking at 1 and out, right? So, sometimes you just got to put your hands in the air and go, hey, if you feel ready to go ahead, and you're taking a big risk for the one game. But these guys, when it comes to playoffs, they're so focused on getting to the Super Bowl and all that I wouldn't be surprised to see him take some reps and seeing him out there. Wow. But I don't know that he would be out there for most of the game. I think it's going to be maybe one of those things as they see him practice today. Maybe it's one of those things that he may be in there in certain situations. I think just having him at the sidelines is a big boost for the 49ers. So I think he could play a few snaps. Whether we see him there for the whole game, I don't really think so.
Wow, I can't even wrap my head around this, Doc. We saw Chris Godwin. It took him forever, like twice as long as this injury. He wasn't even close to the field, right? We're talking about 3 months.
And this guy,
it's crazy, man.
This guy was out there in practice without any support, no external braces.
And he's not young. Nothing. You know what I mean? He's not 21 years old either. Like,
so
is this?
And he looked good. I didn't see a limp. I didn't see a flinch. I didn't see anything as far as any trouble with moving, cutting, pushing. So it looked really good in practice. The question always is, how ready is the bone? How ready is the injury?
He's at a high
3 months out.
How high of a risk is he at for re-injury then?
I think it's pretty high risk. With 3 months out, the bone, but the bones right now, it's kind of getting to the point where it's really getting to the hard and getting to the point where it's structurally sound. Right. So you're really putting in a big risk, especially if he gets hit on that area or if he has to make a cut. There's a potential that bone that just started healing up could give. So it's a huge risk reward but it is the NFL playoffs.
Is it different because he's a defensive player versus offensive?
As a defensive player, I think it's a little riskier. I mean, if he was an offensive lineman, I think it's a little more stable because you have a little more stability as far as what you do, whether you're on a rush play versus a passing play. As a defensive player, there's a lot of movement, cutting, pushing that has to occur because you're attacking. So there's a lot more stress to me when you're attacking than when you're defending. So that you have to take that into consideration too.
I don't know if it's because it's cold outside, but I just got chills because I'm just like, I'm thinking about, I hate to say it, but you think about worst case scenario, right? Like, I hate to look at it like that. I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I mean, it's not even the Super Bowl. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing. Man, it's tough.
And I think that's where the coach has to make that decision, right? How the game is going. I mean, it is Seattle. Seattle, I think, beat the 49ers pretty good during the season. So it's one of those things. Do you want to go ahead and have him play and risk an injury that may put him out for the beginning of next season?
Right.
Or do you reserve him now? You get through Seattle, and maybe we see him in the next game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And staying in Seattle, Charles Cross, one of their best offensive linemen, he just got paid a huge extension, a great first-round pick for him. What is his status? Do we think we could see him on this weekend?
So he had a hamstring injury week 15 against the Colts, so that was December 14th. So when it comes to the hamstring injury, about 4 weeks out, he returned to practice. But as he returned to practice, there was then a knee injury that occurred during practice. So he was pulled out and put on limited practice or limited availability for today's practice because of a new knee injury. Now, I don't know if the knee injury is related to the hamstring injury he was dealing with, or it's just a completely new injury that has come up. So I don't know that we will see him because I think the knee injury, I think from a hamstring perspective, I think he was doing fine and he had been cleared to return to practice, but something happened in the practice that set him back. So I don't know if it's just a mild sprain, it's just something minor that he just needs to work through. And then we see him over the weekend. Again, it is the playoffs, so they're important games for all these teams. So it's a possibility that if it's just a minor knee injury, we'll see him. Because I think from the hamstring side, I think he's okay.
We were just talking Fred Warner, one of his good buddies, Dre Greenlaw. He's actually with the Denver Broncos now. And man, that defense is so amazing for Denver. If they can get him back, that would be a huge boost. What's his likelihood of getting in there?
So I think he's a very good likelihood that he will play. He injured week 16 against Jacksonville. So we're about 3-4 weeks out. I think the bye week helped Denver in this situation because you can rest him for an extra week. So I think he's ready to go. He's been in practice. He has been looking good in practice. There's been no issues with it. So I think he'll suit up and he'll be there to game time.
I said we were going to talk different sports. I want to ask you about Trae Young. He just got traded from the Atlanta Hawks to the Washington Wizards. The NBA is kind of and I think this is part of, and I love the NBA. I love basketball. It's one of my favorite sports. I mean, I played growing up. But man, some of these injuries sometimes after we're talking about Fred Warner coming back after he broke his freaking leg after 3 months, and these guys have a stubbed toe and they're like, we're going to be out for a week. And then there's also ramifications of, how many games guys play and what that means and load management. What do we know about Trae Young? Is he going to come back at all this year? When it's a kind of a weird thing because based on how many wins they have or how many games that they play, it really determines kind of draft picks for not just them, but the New York Knicks as well. And I'm a Knicks fan, so I care about that kind of stuff. So what do we know about Trae Young?
So he injured himself back October 29th against the Nets. So about 3 months ago. So that what they say is he avoided ACL injury. He has an MCL sprain and a quadriceps injury. Now, we just talk about Braden Point and an MCL injury. So most MCL injuries, the return is about, on average, 23 days. Worst case scenario, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 3 months. So he's in that window where he should be back and playing. Now, he also has a quadriceps injury. The average return time from a quadriceps, a bad sprain, is also about 25 days. So from a time perspective, I think he looks okay to return to play from the timeline from both of those injuries. Now, he just got traded to the Wizards. The Wizards have a pretty bad losing record. Well, the thing is, do you risk him coming
Right.
back and risk further injury? You're in a good position for a great draft pick.
Right.
So do you just rest him? He's got a pretty large contract, so you don't really want him
Mhm.
re-injured, then missing the next season. So I think the Wizards are sitting back on it, just letting him rest, preparing themselves for a good draft pick, and then getting ready for next season. Because when I look at the injuries themselves, he's on a timeline that he should be playing. Now I don't. They may start him playing in the next after the All-Star break. I think the Wizards say that they will reevaluate him after the All-Star break to see if it's okay to come back after the All-Star break. So we may see him in action after the All-Star break, I think, for a little bit. But I think it all depends on how the Wizards are doing through the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mentioned last week I was talking to my buddy that was the concussion spotter for Raymond James Stadium, and then we saw a couple of rough ones this weekend. Past weekend with Nico Collins on the Houston Texans hit his head on the ground without being able to brace himself, and then Christian Gonzalez, and Christian Gonzalez, one of the best defenders in the game. I mean, and these are two tough guys, and especially Christian on defense, one of the best in the game. He just didn't look good. He didn't look right, and those are scary, man. Those are scary. It's one thing when the guy gets hit hard and when you can almost feel it through the TV screen, you're like, oh man, what are the chances that he plays? What do we know as far as Gonzalez for New England?
Yeah, so he's on concussion protocol. So definitely, I mean, he had a concussion. Now he did practice yesterday, redshirted. So suggesting he's either on what we call stage 3 or stage 4 return to participation. Now the press wasn't there for a long period of time to see how long was he there in practice.
Okay.
Because stage 3 concussion protocol is about 30 minutes or less of practice. Stage 4, it's a longer time in practice. So was he limited to 30 minutes or less or not? That would determine whether he was in stage 3 or 4. Right after stage 4 is clearance to play. So he was in stage 3 yesterday. If he's in practice today, he would be at stage 4. And then if he completes stage 4 today, which means a full practice, non-contact, no symptoms, he will be cleared to play. So it all depends on how he does today in practice. Is he able to complete stage 4? I'm thinking he was in stage 3 yesterday. And if he clears stage 4, the next one is clearance for play. So he may be available to play this weekend if he clears the stage 4 protocol.
Doc, what is there anything, and I just think about how the elements play into anything. How do the outdoor elements, and I'm again just thinking kind of outside the box, is there more of a risk or less of a risk when it's cold outside for certain injuries? I mean, and I'm not talking about the ones where you don't stretch and you pull a hammy and things like that, but is there anything else where you're more susceptible to certain things because of what the outside elements are, especially as it gets colder here?
Yeah, I mean, bruising, concussions, contusions, because it's harder ground. So when you see these guys hit the ground is so much more harder. It's almost like hitting the concrete.
Right.
So as opposed to in a warmer climate or a wet climate where the ground is soft, you have a little bit of give. These guys were playing in weather where it was very cold. Ground is harder. So when they hit the ground, it's like you're banging yourself on the concrete. So there's a little bit more type of injuries when it comes to either concussions or contusions, bruising, bone bruising, muscle bruising when you hit the ground just because of the hardness of the ground.
Wow, man. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I mean, we've been talking about the Lightning stuff. John Cooper was just mentioned that Hedman's kind of working slowly along, McDonough baby steps, and Doc, they've been winning all these freaking games, 11 games in a row, man. How about our Lightning look good, don't they?
Dude, they're looking incredible. It's kudos to Coach Cooper to having all these guys play cohesively through all the injuries. Now we'll see how the Braden Point injury plays into it. He's a big part of the offense. He's a big part of generating goals. So hopefully he's not out for a long time. I'm not sure how much of an effect. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a large effect on the Lightning and the shuffling of the lines when it comes to games and scoring. I mean, we could tell when Kucherov was out, we were hurting to score. Since Kucherov's been back, things have turned around a lot in the scoring line. So hopefully Braden Point's absence is short because I think it's going to affect a lot of the offensive production the Lightning have.
No doubt about it. The great Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, Evara Health, again, everahealth.org, 17 different locations in Pinellas County. I actually had somebody reach out to me yesterday. interested in the EverHealth Institute, trying to learn right there on campus,
Right.
hands-on training, very similar to what I did in my broadcasting career. It just doesn't get much better than that. Doc, you're the man. I appreciate you, my friend. Have a
Thank you.
great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
You too. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. The great Dr. Rodriguez. I mean, guys, come on. Does it get any better than that? He is the best. He's the man. And it gets to the point where I start thinking of content throughout the week. I don't even wait till Wednesday or Thursday. I'm like, Doc, I got the Braden Point thing. It was the first thing in my head. It's like, Doc's got to take a look at this. God, we got to know. We got to know what's going on with this. Doc, you're the best, buddy. Thank you so much. You're the man. And like our guy Rolly says, hands down the best segment in sports broadcasting. I don't disagree, buddy. I don't disagree. David Terry with the claps. I mean, he's the best. We love Doc. And again, I tell everybody all the time, EverHealth, man. This is why, if you want to go to EverHealth for any of your medical needs from the cradle to the grave, this is what they've said. They have a sliding scale for the uninsured. Any type of insurance, they take it. If you want to deal with people as friendly, as kind, as nice as Dr. Rodriguez, EverHealth is the way to go, man. EverHealth.org. We love them. We love Dr. Rodriguez. I have to talk about this real fast, okay? Where are you at? This right here. SRQ Tom, if you are still watching, I love this comment because I am a huge Chris Jericho when he first came to WWE fan. And when Chris Jericho first came to WWE, and he said one of the biggest pops that I've ever had in my entire life was when Kurt Angle was out there and he was like, "Hello, Kirk Angel." And to this day, one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. So SRQ Tom, if you are commenting on that and you are bringing that up, you have brought so much joy to my life today for saying that. So please tell me that that's what you meant when you put that comment, because that shit is hilarious. I am a huge fan of that era of wrestling when he would say that kind of stuff. And then later on, when Santino Marella would always mispronounce people's names, and he'd say the rapper Acorn is here, and then Baptista pew 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 pew, and Y2J was KYJ, and Sheamus, hello John Cena. Yes, you're the best. SRQ Tom, my guy, you're the man. Thank you, buddy. And I love when Santino was like, hello, John Cena. Like, come on, man. This is why I love freaking wrestling. And I love you guys. You guys are the best. Tim Benz is going to join us here in a bit. It's about to get serious up here because Tim is no nonsense. I freaking love this guy. He's the man. So Tim Benz, talking all things Pittsburgh with him here in a second. This guy is going to tell you why we need to be very careful before we start clamoring for Mike Tomlin being the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Trust me when I tell you. He's been that guy, right? Breakfast with Benz, Trib Sports, Fox Sports, PGA Steelers show host, does stuff with Duquesne as well. He is all over the place. We'll chat with him here momentarily. Let's not forget our good friends at EverHealth, nor our friends at Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, for all your residential and commercial needs. 813-244-0956. Our guy. He is the best for all your kitchen renovations, bathroom renovations. You got something new going on in your house. Our guy Hammer can take care of you. Big time Tampa Bay sports fan at USF grad. He is there. He's been here since day one. Our first ever partner here on the podcast. We love him. And scan the QR code. You see it right there next to me. Go to thehonesthammer.com. Shoot him an email, thehonesthammer@gmail.com. Tell him that you heard it right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Get you a discount. I mean, listen, you want to be able to trust the people. It's not just your house, it's your home. And he gets it. I've been over to the job sites, and the way he treats his workers, those are the kind of people that you want to trust. And you want to support local, this is the guy to do it. Again, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, for all of your residential and commercial needs. 813-244-0956. Follow me at Jay Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Man, it's been an incredible couple of weeks here in 2026. No shortage of information, no shortage of topics to discuss with the Lightning, as good as they have been. The Rays with the Are we going to get a stadium at Hillsborough HCC? I don't know. And then the Buccaneers. Enough with the fire Todd Bowles stuff. Listen, I told you I was not happy with Todd Bowles. I was one of the few guys last year that said he probably has earned one more year. But if you don't take the information that you've gotten over the last 365 days and have changed your opinion, you're just hard-headed and short-sighted. It's not good. Not good at all. And I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made a huge mistake. But coaching changes are all the rage right now. We're going to bring him in. Our good pal, Tim Benz. He does it all. Breakfast with Benz, Trib Sports, Fox Sports PGH, Duquesne, RV. He's everywhere. But and I say this a lot, my friend, pretty much the only reason why I'm still friends with Greg Linnelli is because he connected the two of us. So thanks to him for that and only that.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a good enough reason.
That's it. That's thanks for introducing me to Tim, and that's it. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Is he still playing? He could actually play basketball a little bit. He was a pretty good shooter.
No, he's got 3 kids now. He always looks exasperated, man. The only thing he does is walk outside. He goes for his morning walks, he said. I go, you're an 85-year-old grandfather in a late 30, early 40 body. What's wrong with you, buddy?
That sounds about right. He will occasionally text me if the Dukes are doing something really, really good or really, really bad. That's when I tend to hear from Greg.
Yeah, it's funny, too.
Or if there's something going on with Lightning and Penguins. Then maybe I'll hear from him on that, too.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Every time something randomly Duquesne came up a couple weeks ago, and I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, it's crazy how that happens in sports where like your worlds collide and everything. And
well, they collided the other night. That's why I couldn't go to the Pens Lightning game, which I really wanted to attend. But Dayton was in town, and of course, Tomlin had been fired 5 hours before face-off. So, like everything was coalescing. Like I had a column written ready to go on my plan because the Steelers facility and the arena and Duquesne's arena are really close. They're total of 10 minutes apart. And you walk down one little hill and up a little hill between Duquesne's arena and PPG Paints. Like you can look out and see each other. So, it's really close. And I was thinking the whole time, like I'm going to have an easy go of it today, go to locker room, talk to a couple guys about next year, figure out when they're going to have the Tomlin press conference to look ahead to next year, wrote my column, and I was like 2 quotes away from filling it out. And then the news came that he was resigning and got to tear it up, start all over again. Next thing you know, I'm hustling to make tip off, and I'm calling the game practically blind at that point on 2 hours of sleep from the playoff game the night before. It's been a wild week here, a really wild week.
Oh man. So I'm even more grateful that you took time to join us today on the program. And listen, I tout you so often down here when people talk about Mike Tomlin, because you and I have had this conversation, not just recently. It's been the last couple of years where people in Pittsburgh are looking at Mike Tomlin and they're going, you guys are not realizing, and you don't watch this team all the time.
Yeah.
You don't look at the lack of success in the postseason. You don't look at some of the issues that they have. So you just mentioned, how much of a surprise was it to you and everybody around there that he resigned? Because there were some national kind of whispers that whoever lost that game between Baltimore and Pittsburgh would be out. And now both guys are out. It's going to be weird watching Steelers-Ravens next year without Harbaugh and Tomlin on the side.
Yeah, unfortunately, my chaos theory hope is already gone up in flames because Harbaugh is going to the Giants. But what my dream scenario was Stefanski to Pittsburgh, Harbaugh to Cleveland, and Tomlin to Baltimore, and then just have the concentric circles overlap the other way. That's what I was rooting for, but sadly, it's not going to come to pass, and I don't think Stefanski is in their plan for interviews. At least not that I've heard so far. Jerome Bettis gave him a hearty endorsement. And then he said, stay away from our coach at Notre Dame. So, I think Jerome has his own interests involved there. But no, I was surprised because, like you said, there's those rumblings every year. I've been hearing Tomlin's going to wind up on Fox for 5 years now. So eventually they're probably going to be right. So he can do some hosting with his buddy Jay Glazer and just tell him immediately everything he wants him to know instead of sending a text at the last minute, which has normally been the case for those Sunday morning shows with the two of those guys. I don't know how it'll be on TV. That's a different story that we can get into eventually if he decides to go that path. But I am surprised he walked away because it just felt like he was not going to leave until he was forced to leave or until things got really bad. And actually, I felt like it was dissipating some after the win against the Ravens, after the 4-5 stretch to close out the season, following when it bottomed out against the Bills, and there were all the fire Tomlin chants that were going on. Now, they did bubble up again. Maybe he had an epiphany somewhere in the 14 hours between the press release when it came out and when they had left the stadium at about midnight on Monday night after the Texans torched him. But, you know, the last question that was ever asked of Mike Tomlin in a press conference setting, I got it in. So, like, maybe I'll take the transcript and ask him to sign it like Bullock did when he was going to ask Rodgers to sign the pick six football as his last pass in the National Football League. But, you know, that last question I asked him was, he had said a couple times during the presser, I don't want to go big picture. I don't want to go big picture. I don't want to. He kept saying that over and over again. So I said, Mike, if this is too big picture, I apologize. But when you think about next year coming back, do you have a foundation on this team where maybe you can get a step further than you did this year at least? And he answered in the affirmative. He didn't give me a great answer, but he kind of answered in the affirmative. He didn't sound like a guy who's like, well, I'm peacing out. I don't care about next year. Like, I didn't get that inclination from that response. But this is obviously something that's been ruminating in his head. And I don't know if he gave it some deep thought and had a sleepless night and it just came to him in a dream, whatever. I don't know what it was, but something happened when he walked into Art Rooney II's office and said, I resign. Now, the preamble to that conversation could have also been, hey, Art, I would like my option picked up for 2027. And Art said no. And then he said, well, I resign. It could be as pragmatic and practical as that. And for whatever reason, nobody wants to talk about that angle here in Pittsburgh. Like, nobody wants to make it as cut and dry and cutthroat as that. But, you know, there was elements of that with Cowher too. You know, like, part of the reason Cowher was kind of over the whole process was he was not, you know, if they'd backed up the Brinks truck and really paid him into staying, he would have.
Right.
But that's not where they were at the time. And he had been the year removed from the Super Bowl. So that kind of got him thinking about leaving. And it just got to that point. Then they had a 500 season and the rest is kind of history. But I don't know. I'm not sure how much of that I believe myself. I think it's a distinct possibility. And until Tomlin talks, that prospect will be out there. And he hasn't talked. Like, Cowher went out with Art Rooney II introducing him. Dan, if I remember right, Dan Rooney back at the old facility was sitting down at a table with Chuck Noll when he hung it up. This was Art standing by himself at a podium after a press release with Tomlin's name on it. That's all we've heard from Mike so far on this.
You know, and it's very unique too. I was having this conversation yesterday. The Pittsburgh Steelers are so unique, and there's really no other team like that because of the way that they've handled their head coaches, right? It's almost like a joke within, you know, sports circles of, you know, people fire coaches because he sneezed in the wrong direction. I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody and their mother, you could be the most casual football fan, but you say Noll, Cowher, and Tomlin. So, you know, from the outside, we look at it and go, all right, well, the Steelers are going to hire a guy and they're not hoping that he is going to be doing good for 2 years. They're probably hoping he's going to be here for 2 decades. I mean, that's what we've grown accustomed to watching this team. So where do we turn now? Where do we turn? Because, you know, you kind of look at the decisions that they've made in the past, right? Mike Tomlin didn't have this like glowing head coaching resume, but I mean, he was obviously well revered and well respected. I'm sure guys like Tony Dungy and Marvin Lewis and some of these other guys were speaking up on his behalf before he got the job with Pittsburgh. Where do they turn now? Because you would have to think that they're not just making a short-term hire here. They're going to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers way, and they're hoping that this is a long-term answer.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm a little concerned about is that, you know, I just getting used to the idea of Jesse Minter or Greg Shula or Anthony Weaver or thinking about Flores again. You know, that conversation is a little bit more familiar to us because he was here.
Right.
But like, these are the names that are being kicked around. The one that everybody seems the most interested in is the passing game coordinator for the Rams.
Schilhaas, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I literally think that people want him because his name is spelled in Pittsburghese. I'm not kidding. I think people want him because it's fun to say. Schilhaas.
Yeah, Haas.
And it's also the only offensive name that's been advanced. Yes. Everybody else who's been advanced has been a defensive coordinator to some extent or another. So, I get it. I know why they want to have a type, and that type is 35 to 40, never been a head coach before, defensive coordinator. That was Noel Cowher Tomlin. Mm-hmm. So I think they have it in their head. That's the way you have to go. And I would much prefer to hire the right coach and not the right type.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know of that bunch who it is yet, honestly. Mm-hmm. And, I do like the idea of Jesse Minter, but then he better bring along somebody who's a really good offensive coordinator too.
Yeah, and it's tough too. You bring an offensive coordinator, and that seems to be, and I say that here in Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles better get it right in 2026, because people aren't signing up for 50 and 60-year-old defensive coordinators. They're looking for anybody that has ever shared a cup of coffee with a McVay or a Shanahan, and that's what people want. Sheil Haas and Liam Cohen and Josh Gazard and guys like that. All right, so this is one of the main reasons why I wanted you on today, because people here are already talking about Mike Tomlin taking over in 2027 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I am just like, whoa, pump the brakes. You guys don't know. You're just looking at you're looking at the shiny toy. You're looking at the pretty girl at the bar, and you're not thinking, why is she there at 1:30 a.m. in the morning? Why isn't she home? Why is she by herself? There's a problem there. So please help me out. When people here in the Tampa Bay area are saying we want Tomlin, why shouldn't they be as enthusiastic? Because I think they're falling in love more with the actual name than the coach.
I think it's fair. So you want me to wave the red flags instead of waving the terrible towel is what you're telling me.
Please. All
right. Well, here are the detractions and the detractors. Okay. I can just rattle off some stats off the top of my head, and you can extract them for why that may or may not fit in Tampa. So for everything that is to be said and gleaned and applauded for him going 19 full seasons and never having a losing season, the fact that they've never bottomed out, that is definitely applause-worthy. It's no small thing, especially insofar as they have done the last 6 of those years now without Ben Roethlisberger being 100% healthy. Right. Okay, so basically, if you look at it since his elbow injury, which ended the 2019 season after 2 weeks, that was Duck and Mason Rudolph, that was Justin Fields, that was Russ Wilson, that was an aging Aaron Rodgers, that was Kenny Pickett, that was Mitch Trubisky. Those are the quarterbacks that they've had since then, and not the best overall roster, certainly not comparable to the ones that he was given when he took over back in 2007. And he still never bottomed out and had a terrible losing season. So that's no small thing. However, when that is constantly advanced to cover some of the other realities, such as he had the biggest say-so in terms of player procurement and acquisition. I'm not going to say that he was authoritarian about it. I'm not going to say he had the final word on every single move. I'm just going to say that as the head coach and the biggest personality and biggest voice in that building, somebody who'd been there for 19 years, if Mike Tomlin didn't want somebody in a place of importance on his team, that person was not going to be there. First and foremost, the quarterback that takes over for Ben Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. And that was Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett within the span of a couple weeks of each other. Mm-hmm. So, there's that. There's Russ. There's Fields. There's Rodgers. All these guys who have been there since, that are built-in excuses for why they didn't do better than 8-8 or 9-7 or ever win a playoff game, are guys that Mike signed off on or flat out wanted. Keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that for as great as it sounds like that they were 9-8, 8-8, 10-7 or better every single year that he was there, you're talking about 9 straight seasons without a playoff win. I think there's something like only 7 or 8 other teams in the National Football League that have a drought longer than they do, and some of them might end before these playoffs are over, including Denver, I think, is one of them. I might be right on that. You also have to consider that he was there for 19 total years, and only 4 of them featured seasons with playoff victories. Okay, so it's not just 9 years since they've won their last one. In the 19 years they were there, with Tomlin in charge, they won a playoff game in 08 and 10, the years that they went to the Super Bowls. Then not again until 15 and 16 when they had a couple of playoff wins in those 2 seasons. And then not again after that. 19 years, 15 of them didn't have a playoff win attached to them. So whenever you think 10 and 7, 9 and 8, 8 and 8, never bottoming out, that's great. That's a lot of time to not win a playoff game. And a ton of those seasons, Ben Roethlisberger was healthy. Right. His elbow wasn't frayed until 2019. Okay. So like you're talking about 2011, 12, 13, 14 with a healthy Roethlisberger, no playoff victories. Sprinkle in 2009 and 2007 when he was healthy and good too, and they didn't get a playoff victory. It's like that's a lot of seasons with a Hall of Fame quarterback that you didn't even get a playoff win. So yeah, you'll probably never bottom out. He will prevent that from happening. But you can have a lot of pieces in place, and you might get upset at home by the Jaguars. You might lose a COVID bowl to the Cleveland Browns where you're down 28-0 in the first quarter, and you're losing to Cleveland's special teams coach because Stefanski's at home with COVID. These are the kind of defeats that they have. You could be 7-6 with the Texans in the fourth quarter and lose 31-6 or 30-6 or whatever it ended up being. Like there is a spotty, checkered resume beyond 2 early Super Bowls and never had a losing season. If you're just happy looking at that, just look at it. Don't look at the underlying numbers. Don't look behind the walls when you buy the new house. But that's the real estate red flag I'll use instead of your bar floozy at 1:30 in the morning analogy, although yours is probably better.
I love that, Tim. Thank you so much for that, because I feel like we're not getting much different, right? Somebody said before here watching the show, like, I feel like we're going from mediocre to mediocre, and the Buccaneers aren't one of those teams that, like, they don't have leadership, and it's like people are jumping ship, and like people are talking smack about Todd Bowles. Like, they're not really getting that. They're not getting. This isn't like a team in disarray, and they're just a team that, like, they're not being coached well enough. Like, that's just, people don't like that, right? And I think you can agree with this. People get mad when the simple answer is you got to coach better, you got to play better, because everybody on the outside always wants to quantify it with a number. Well, what about this and some weird stat? And they always there's always a caveat. I am up to my ears with caveats, and we always got to try to find an excuse of why this guy shouldn't. Why this guy's job shouldn't be questioned. It's like, a lot at the end of the day, it's a results oriented business. Like you just articulated there, 19 years and only 4 years with a playoff win. Like, all the other things are good college tries. 15 years, that's crazy.
This might be a little bit of an oversimplification, but there's a lot of times in my years covering Tomlin where I thought to myself, he is at his best when things are at the worst, and he is at his worst when things are best. That was not the case early on, because he was gifted a great roster with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he maximized that through the first 4 quarters before they got to overtime of losing to Tim Tebow in the playoffs in 2011. All right. But then they still had a good roster after that. They missed the playoffs entirely in 12 and 13 and 8 and 8. They had maybe the best offense in football in 2014. They got a bad break because Lev Bell got hurt, but they didn't win a playoff game that year. And I remember in 2015, it was the first time I thought, okay, I'm done with this guy. I'm over this guy. And that was, they lost a game. It was 16 games back then. I can't remember. Game 15 against the Ravens. The Ravens were out of it that year. Ryan Mallett was the quarterback, and they lost to Ryan Mallett with a need to win that game to get in the playoffs. And the next week they got in because I think they beat the Browns to get in. And Rex Ryan and the Bills went up to New York, went to New York and beat the Jets, and that got the Steelers in. So they backdoored their way into a playoff, and then they got in that play. That was that crazy Cincinnati game where Burfict and Pac-Man Jones lost their mind, and they started fighting him after the dead ball, and they pushed Joey Porter when he was a coach. You remember that? But in that game, they went in with no Lev Bell, who was injured. They went in with an injured Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger got injured in that game, came back, was playing with one arm, or half an arm, and AB got knocked out by the Burfict hit. And they still managed to win that game. They went up to Denver and played a very heavily favored Broncos team and took it to the fourth quarter before a 5th-string running back fumbled and they lost. Like that was probably Tomlin's best coaching job, when things were at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they had a roster caked with talent in between Super Bowl 45 and it was nothing but disappointments. And you can kind of say the same thing in a lot of years after, like 2017. They're at home against the Jaguars, who had blown their doors off earlier. And all they did was talk trash, the whole team, the whole week, about how they wanted to play New England again. Then the Jacksonville came here and beat them even worse in the playoffs. They lost to Blake Bortles with a 13-3 team. So, like that's, again, an example of he's at his worst when things are at their best, and he's at his best when things are at their worst.
Very well said, my friend. And before I get you out of here, man, I want to ask you about the Pirates, because the Pirates in the race with a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like the Chris Archer deal all over again. Is there some level of excitement?
I hope not.
Is there some level of excitement that they went out and made some moves and brought O'Hearn and Lau?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lau's the so they were smart about this. They made these offers to Kyle Schwarber, and they were allegedly in on it. Who else were they in on that was kind of making everybody laugh? But they, we were right there. We're right on the cusp. Naylor. That's what it was. Naylor in Seattle. That's right. Guys who are never going to leave, or guys that they've obviously found out what the highest offer was, so they came in not this under, but this under, just in case he changed his mind. They are classic for doing that.
Oh, Rays do that too. Yeah. Well, we were in on Bryce Harper. Get the hell out of here. And
then you walk away with Tommy Pham as your best offseason acquisition, and he doesn't get a hit until friggin' June or whatever. He was great after that. I shouldn't probably use Tommy Pham as an example, but that's the type. At least this time they went in on Schwarber. They went in on Naylor in quotes. And they wound up with O'Hearn and Lau, who I think will be actually a good. They are upgrading there. It's not just more of the same. So they did help their offense. You can kind of do the same thing with the Japanese player who came over and went to Toronto. He was kind of in that mix too. But I don't want to be too cynical about everything they do, but there is a cynical thing to this insofar as, one, if there is a cap or a floor or whatever the newfound labor landscape is going to be, they needed to have some payroll on the books.
Right.
Like, if you come out of this and there is a floor and a cap or some facsimile thereof following the 2027 stoppage, whenever it ends, you don't want to be like some of those teams we saw in the NHL once they put a cap and a floor in place, and these lesser payroll teams were scrambling to get to the floor and just overbidding on garbage to get there. Like, the Pirates don't want to do that because they don't have a ton of money. They'll never have a ton of money. And they don't want to throw good money after bad just to make it to the new system. So you might as well pay now and get ahead of it. So there's that thinking. And then there's also the thought of, when it comes to the agents and when it comes to if they don't get a cap and a floor, you want people besides just your fans and the media that cover you to think that you're actually trying. When it comes to the revenue share conversations and all that, they're getting looked at by the league, and everybody's knowing what they're doing. They're not doing anything with the revenue share payments, and it's time to show that you're doing something with it that has to do with the major league team and not just team development and how many analysts you have and ballpark renovations or whatever the hell.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. Well, keep an eye on Mason Montgomery because he was in that deal too. He throws hard, brother. He doesn't always know where it's going. But this is a guy that throws absolute cheese, so he can help you guys in the back end of your bullpen. And if you never know, man, guys like that, you get with a different pitching coach and you can figure it out. I mean, he could be one of those guys like Bednar, you know what I mean? Like, it just all of a sudden it's like, hey, you got an all-star closer out of nowhere. And lastly, how's the Penguins being received up there?
No one's quite sure how to feel about anything. It's going to be one of these things where they'll walk away 10th place in the East, and not make the playoffs and not have the tank for McKenna season that everybody has wanted. I'm actually going to State College tomorrow to go see McKenna play.
Cool.
Which I'm looking forward to. But that probably was never going to happen anyway. They were never going to get that bad with Crosby and Malkin and Letang still there. They were never going to be like the worst team in the East, especially with the East everything being like this, like it's hard to bottom out there. So they win just enough to make you interested. The East is just bad enough to keep them in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fun now, especially because the Steelers are done. So, you got at least one team to root for until Paul Skeens gets on the mound for the first time. So, there's a little of that, but there's also, are they really good enough to make a playoff? And if they're good enough to make a playoff, can they actually win a series, or are they just taking themselves away from what's supposed to be a fairly strong draft class, even if it doesn't include McKenna at the very top, or if McKenna's not quite what everybody was assuming he was a couple months ago?
So you're telling me that the Penguins are headed for a Mike Tomlin classic 8-8 season or 9-7 season?
We're used to that around here.
The great Tim Benz. Check him out, Tim Benz PGH on Twitter/X. Breakfast with Benz, Trib Sports, Fox Sports, PGH, Duquesne. He does it all up there. You are the man. And again, I'm grateful for Greg Linnelli for that and that only. Have a good rest of your week, my friend. Thanks for making our show a whole heck of a lot better. Talk soon.
Tell Greg, put up your Dukes.
Will do, brother. See ya. The great Tim Benz. I love that. There's nobody else I go to, man, for Pittsburgh stuff. Nobody else. He is the best. Put up your Dukes is right. Ed Encina running a little bit late. Okay, all good, Betty. Oh, sorry, on here. One second, just answering this. Just trying to make sure. How about our lightning, boys and girls? Bum, 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 bum. All right. So some interesting stuff there here on the program. And Meets McGee says, Rondé said that he knew last summer Mike T was resigning. Plus, he has no plans of coaching again, and there's a small percent of a chance of coaching again. I hear you, but I also you hear that a lot. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to ask people right after they resign and get out of the game if they're ever going to get back into it. Because at that time, think about it. Think about your friend that it's like, I'm never dating again after getting out of a bad relationship. And then what happens? Like 2 weeks later, it's like, yeah, well, I met this girl. And it's like, dude, you just said you're never dating again. Like things happen like that all the time. So we got to keep that in perspective, but I appreciate the $5 super chat. Meets McGee. Appreciate you. Interesting stuff about Mike Tomlin, though, for all those people that are clamoring and wanting him and thinking that it's going to be a lot different than Todd Bowles. Only 4 wins, right? Only 4 years with a playoff win out of 19 seasons there in Pittsburgh. Why would it be that much different here in Tampa Bay? It sounds a lot similar. Sounds very similar to what we're getting with Todd Bowles. Now, listen, the one thing you know about me is that, and especially with whether it's me or whether it's me with Ian, is I am going to say the quiet part out loud. Whether people want to admit it or not, there are going to be people out there that are not going to want Mike Tomlin here because he is a black head coach, just like Todd Bowles. They'll never admit that to you. They won't have any type of substance whatsoever to why. They'll just be like, well, I just don't want him. I just don't want him. That's kind of the reality of the situation. And again, nobody will have the balls to ever say anything like that. But it's that kind of veiled racism that still occurs in society today that you see, and you can never really prove it because people will backtrack and they'll never commit to it. But there's just going to be something about Mike Tomlin being black after having a black head coach that people are going to have issue with. It's just the way it goes. I hate that it is like that. And you're not going to hear many people say that. And you're not going to hear many white people say that either. But I will, because I see it and I understand it. And I think it's bullshit. And it's sad that that shit still has to happen. I said I wasn't going to curse on the show, but that's what racism does. I hate bringing that shit up. And you know me, I do not like race baiters. I do not like when people bring up racism when it has nothing to do with it. Right? But there's certain times when it needs to be brought up, because if it's brought up at the wrong times, I think it actually takes away from when it actually really does happen. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars thing with the reporter, I don't know if that necessarily had as much to do with her race as the fact that it happened on the national stage, but was there maybe some underlying reason why certain people didn't like it because of that? Because it was an older black woman saying that to a white man? Maybe. We still know that that is resonating in certain areas of the country. I don't think that it's this epidemic that it's permeating through the majority, right? And that it's just like it's absolutely crippling the foundation of our country. I wouldn't go that far, but to think that there isn't pockets of that throughout the country, I think if you don't believe that, I think you're short-sighted and you need to be more well-rounded in what's going on around the nation. Just the way it goes. And that's what you get here on this show. Real talk, because you're not going to hear anybody else bring stuff up like that. That's why, and if you missed it, I really implore you guys to go back and listen to the conversation that we had about the Jacksonville reporter yesterday with Ian. Because we went into it. And I said that as much to him. I said, listen, like that's the reason why it works with me and him, is because there's nothing off the table. There's no other show in the history of Tampa Bay sports radio that can say that. None of them. None of them previously, none of them currently. Without a doubt. People will steer away from race. They'll stay away from religion. They'll stay away from politics. And if they do, they'll attack it from one side and one side only. I've been in those rooms. USF baseball and softball season tickets on sale now. Get there. Cannot wait for baseball and softball season with Coach Mitch Ennis. I saw Coach Ken Erickson again last night. My guy's rocking like the Fu Manchu. Bro, he is a trip, dude. I freaking love that guy. Last night at the Yingling Center, I looked down and I'm going to go see the great Jim Lighthall and Joey Johnston on the men's basketball broadcast. And there was some of the co-ed cheer members of the USF co-ed cheer team going onto the court. It was so funny. And I saw Ken Erickson walking. I saw Joey. I'm like, are y'all going to do some cheerleading thing that nobody knows about? It was pretty funny. I enjoyed it very much. So listen, I again, very, very good stuff last night from USF men's basketball and Coach Brian Hodgson. I mentioned that a little bit before. Let's give you an update on all the big news topics before Ed Encina joins us. Jonathan Kuminga demands a trade from the Golden State Warriors. That really hasn't worked out as a first-round pick. I tell you what, the Golden State Warriors have been the most recent dynasty in the National Basketball Association, but I think they really screwed up not prolonging. I mean, they could have won more. I think they made some really bad missteps, whether it was drafting James Wiseman, whether it was drafting Kuminga and Moody, and what they did with D'Angelo and having him there, and then bringing Chris Paul in. Like, they made a lot of weird moves that prevented them from possibly being one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the NBA. Now, they are maybe one of the best, but I mean, I look at some of the other years. I look at the Kobe and Shaq Lakers, and, I know they've won 4. I get that, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Like, you look at it and it's Steph, it's Clay, it's Draymond. KD obviously was there for a couple of years. It's just a weird kind of thing. I think they could have won more. I think they could have won 6 or 7. Richie, I was there, brother. I was there. I was walking around. And if you guys ever see me at any of the events here in the Tampa Bay area, make sure you guys come up and say hello. Yeah, I always want to meet our folks here in the Tampa Bay area. Our guy, the original Oos, Ed Encina, should be joining us here momentarily. But, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it is crazy, man. It is crazy how many people just didn't listen to what I said about the Liam Cohen thing. Could have won 6-7. Could have won 6 or 7. Could have won 6 or 7. Looking at all these different things. All right. And this whole John Harbaugh thing. Happy Bagel Day, everybody. Does everybody know? Did you guys see that? Happy Bagel Day. Unbelievable. The new I'm looking. The new commercial with Brandon Hagel and Pepsi for National Bagel Day. Bro, that was sick. That was sick. I'm so happy for him. And I'm so happy for him, especially because I just spoke to him the other day after the game and after they won. And we were joking around about how he's one of the few guys that speaks after a loss. Like he gets it. He's okay with it. Right. And those are tough conversations sometimes. And when we spoke to him after a win, he was like, this is great talking to you guys after a win. I'm like, keep winning, bro. Now that was 7-game winning streak, I think, 8-game. But it was 11 now. Richie, those kids were balling. I just can't wait till fan base start to show up like they did when Amir was here. Yeah. And you know what? Nationally ranked, you got to win some big games too, right? And it's not great for the American as a whole that there's no ranked teams as of right now. It doesn't help when a team like Memphis is having a little bit of a down year. You got to win some of those non-conference games. It's growing. Like I was very curious to see what the attendance was going to be like last night at the YC, and it wasn't where it was for Amir, but there was a fair showing. Like I thought it was pretty good. It can get better, of course. And listen, the best game that I've been to was the game against FAU when they were ranked, and USF won that game. What an incredible matchup that was, and to be able to win that game, and then they were ranked. It's still tough to be able to go to that building and to be able to look across and to see the Amir Abdur-Rahim student section. And yeah, man, it's still tough. It's still not easy. And every time I see Chris Youngblood or I see, all these different guys, Selton Miguel and Kaysen Pryor and, Coach Ben Fletcher and seeing Kobe Knox and Jaden Reed and all these different guys, you just think back about that season, about how good they were and how it was just amazing. It was such a good time. Louis, not really a fan of having Mike Tomlin. Our guy Louis, Frozen Pirate Podcast. Go check that out today. I'm with you, buddy. I am with you. I think, again, we're going down the road of another guy that's a really good dude, but is he a really good is a really good football coach where he's going to give your team an advantage as far as his scheme ability? And I thought Tim put it really well. He's at his best when the team is at his worst, and he's at his worst when his team is at its best. 4 winning playoff, 4 years where they won a playoff game out of 19, not good enough. Not good enough at all. And again, my sentiment is this. If you're a team rather, that is clamoring for a big boy, a leader, a grown-up in the room like the Giants are, then it makes sense. But I don't know if that's necessarily what the Buccaneers are missing. What Mike Tomlin brings to the table, is that what the Bucs are missing? Like, if anything, we've lauded them for the things that Mike Tomlin would change. I don't know. It's not that much of a change to me. I could go for New York bagel right now. My roommate got me a everything bagel the other day. I want a bacon, egg, and cheese. I got to ask her where it was from because it was incredible. I'm actually going to text her right now as a wait for Ed. And our favorite Encina, Shannon Encina, stand by. Look at this. Where did you get that breakfast sandwich 2 weeks ago? The bacon, egg, and cheese on the everything bagel. I'm trying to tell people on the podcast. It was amazing, period. I am not a huge voice to text person, but I am right now. You guys have to, I don't know where it was, but it was phenomenal. And hopefully I'll find out before the end of the show today. But the great Eddie Encina is going to join us on the program. I am so surprised that Shannon would send us a message and help Ed because he beat her in the finals of the fantasy football league that they have with their family. I thought Ed would be sleeping on the couch for a week, a month, 6 months. I thought Raleigh would get all he would get the big turkey leg, like he would get everything. So it just shows you why Shannon Encina is our favorite Encina, because of the maturity, because of the love that she has for her husband. She is the bigger person. So, Shannon, we appreciate you and your help in letting us know where Ed is because he's on his way. You're the best, Shannon. Our favorite Encina. Well, I don't know if it's our favorite Encina because Raleigh's got to be up there. But listen, we're hearing the excuses now. Listen, everyone on my roster decided to take a bleep in the championship game. I mean, we were rooting for you. We were rooting for you, Shannon, because we knew that Ed was going to not take the high road in the fantasy football. He was going to brag about it. He was sending me text messages. I'm the greatest fantasy football player of all time. I mean, he just kept saying it. And oh, look, here he is, the fantasy football champ himself, the original Oos, Ed Encina. I just wanted to just show love to Shannon for giving everybody a heads up that you were on your way. She's the best.
What'd she say?
She said, "Stand by Jay." That's what she told me. She and I told her that's why she's our favorite Encina, and she didn't make you sleep on the couch for a week or a month because you beat her in the fantasy football playoffs.
Well, we don't look in the past very much here. Look to where's the future.
Have you ever had the Bagel Nook?
The Bagel Nook? What's that?
It's a place to get breakfast sandwiches. My roommate got it a couple weeks ago, a bacon, egg, and cheese on an everything bagel, and it was probably the greatest breakfast sandwich that I've had in Tampa Bay since I've been here.
Where's this at?
I don't know where it is. It's the Bagel Nook. So we got to look it up. Everybody else, look it up and let us know.
Big bagel guy.
Yeah, man. Big bagel guy myself. All right. Thank you for racing back from practice over at Benchmark International Arena and joining us for today. Let's start with the Braden Point news. I just saw that it looks like, John Cooper says, ask me in about 10 to 14 days. They've avoided an ACL injury. That's because that's the worst case scenario. But where did you get the feeling when you asked that question or somebody asked that question? What was the feeling, the vibe around the Braden Point situation?
I think that, obviously the worst case scenario has been avoided here, right? And I think that now the big question is kind of, and Coop said this, is that, when you look at the timeline, how's affects, his status with Team Canada, obviously. And I think he was saying that that's one that you kind of, you have some time here to kind of figure that out, but that, obviously when you see it on the ice, it's pretty scary because, it's one of those things where that's the first thing you think of is an ACL, right? Mm-hmm. And you talk to the great Shannon Encina, and she's probably, I know you have some experts on earlier, but she's probably the biggest ACL expert herself because she's torn it not one, not two, but 3 times. So,
wow.
So all different ways. I think one playing intramural football, one was playing soccer in college, one was playing.
Running after you for trying to get a date
the wrong way. So, but yeah, so she's an expert on that. But back to Pointer, I think, like I said, I think this is a situation where they think that they've got this in hand a little bit more, their head around it a little bit better, and then it's not going to be as serious as possible. Still, it's a week to week kind of situation. And, we've seen some of these injuries that we've thought, listen, the Lightning don't necessarily have a great track record of timelines this year. Whether it's Victor,
really,
whether it's Ryan McDonough, stuff like that. So some of this you take with a little bit of a grain of salt, and it's not that I don't think by any means Coop is being deceptive by any means. Yeah. I just think that some of these things, some of these injuries are just kind of hard to gauge, and with McDonough, it's one of those things where and Hedman, they both tried to come back and couldn't. Hedman needed surgery. McDonough. I don't think there's necessarily a firm timeline on him right now. Obviously, I think everything to this point is, outdoor game, early February, and to get them in before the break. But, at the same time, some of these things have been, pretty tricky this year. And that's not a knock on any means on the training staff or the doctors or anything like that. We all know that, the Lightning have great ones that, great people in those roles. But, so when you hear, a few weeks, I think that's a good thing, especially considering how, what it looked like on the ice. And, I think obviously a guy like Pointer, his game is his speed, right? So at the same time, we might be looking at this as, can he get back for the Olympics and stuff like that? But with him, it's going to be, how he feels when he gets on skates and how he feels when, he's so good stopping, picking up speed, stopping, turning, everything like that. Like that's where the knee is, strained at his most. So I think it's optimistic, but I think you also have to be realistic about it too, in terms of what it might take for him to get back to playing, not just for the Lightning, but in a, big spotlight, high pressure.
He's not a fourth liner.
Like the Olympics, Yeah,
no doubt about it. And if he can't go, what about Josh Hockey? Can we get him in there, you think?
Longer shifts, man. Longer shifts for everyone, according to Josh Hockey. But now I don't even know if Josh Hockey can ice skate.
Really? He can't. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. You used the word Gage, so let's go to Gage Gonsalves. What have you seen from him? I mean, this guy, the goal in Philly, the inside out move was so impressive. And I thought of, when he gets the opportunity to go in there in the shootout and to score, he still plays with that youthful exuberance. I don't know if you saw the video of him, and he was talking about, oh, that's nasty. Like, he still holds Point and Kucherov with this kind of reverence of like, I can't believe I'm playing with these freaking guys. I really enjoy being around Gage Gonsalves, and that, we were kind of questioning it, right, Ed, a couple months ago of like, man, he could be on the way out, or he could be on the way down, but man, he's really found his game over the last month or so.
Well, obviously, one, it's a good problem to have, right? When you have guys where you're kind of like, okay, when you have this list and you're like, okay, this guy's maybe at the bottom, and that's nothing about Gage, but there was a time here not that long ago where he was a healthy scratch in a few games, and you really couldn't find a spot for him. And obviously that, I think the great thing about Gage, and, we talk about like, Nick Paul's like this as well, is, that you're seeing a guy develop in different roles, and obviously I think Gage is at his best when he's in a top six role and playing with players like Kuch and Point and Gensel and Hagel and Sorelli and guys like that, brings out the best in him. And I think the biggest thing about Gage as we've seen his game evolve is, this guy was a second round pick, and this is a guy who scored goals and, scored power play goals, in the AHL. And he is a bona fide scorer. And I think there's always something, I think you can ask a lot of the young players and even some players that are veterans that come over mid-season it's as much as they make you welcome in the room, it's not necessarily easy playing with some of these guys because you put pressure on yourself. Like I think Darren Rash would tell you the same thing when he first started on the first team power play. It's like, you feel like you've got to live up to this pressure. And I think the best thing we're hearing the Gage talk about is hearing guys like Point and Cooch tell him, like, shoot, like you've got the shot, shoot. And I think when you see that, and again, going back to Gage, he'll be the first guy who tells you he's a hockey nerd. He's a guy who, he will spend time on his phone on.
He's always watching.
He's always watching games. He's always watching clips. And, he would talk about, the other day I was talking, he was talking about like guys from this team that he's watched. He remembers watching, Gensel when he first came up and was a part of those, Stanley Cup teams in Pittsburgh, Pointer's a human highlight, film it, when the puck on a stick, and and Cooch can do it too, in terms of plays that these guys make that just drop your jaw. And he was saying about how he used to play with Pointer and Cooch in Xbox on NHL 2K, and here he is like physically playing with them. So to him, it's a thing that you love to see a young player not just embrace the role, but just almost get giddy about it. But at the end of the day, him hearing from those guys, knowing that, and him hearing from these guys, like, take the shot, you're not just here to dig pucks out and to, get the puck to us. When you got a shot, take it. And then you see that, kind of, come to life with that first goal in Philly, where he makes a move that we know Gage Gonsalves can make. And I remember asking him after that game, it's like, and that's where he mentioned, it's like hearing it on the bench, and when those guys come back from shifts and be like, take it. And, and again, he's one of those guys too, that, another thing that boosts your confidence was when your coach taps you on the back and says, hey, take the first one in the shootout. And that's happened a couple times. And, I think that's one thing that we talked about, how Coop has been like that this might be his best coaching job ever, and that, you know, this is the year that just maybe he wins a Jack Adams. But, you know, that's a part of it too, is knowing, you know, when a situation arises where you can take a player and use that opportunity to build that confidence and build that momentum for him. And, you know, and you do it. And I think that's all that stuff. Like, Coop just has such a good pulse of that. And I think we're seeing that. And, especially with Gage. And he, I mean, again, like, he's such a great kid too. He's like, I mean, he's not a kid anymore, but, you know, I mean, he's one of the guys that, you know, I think he's from my first draft class of guys that, you know, and to be honest, and not a lot of guys have made it, you know, from some of these, you know, 2021, 22, you know, draft classes. And, you know, he's one of the guys that has, and it's really fun seeing him kind of grow on the spot and seeing him really kind of become a guy. And, you know, like, yeah, a couple weeks ago, a month ago, like, you don't know where his future was. And now you know, you're kind of like, you know, we talk about Connor Geeky, you know, we had that question with Julian, you know, a couple of days ago, but like, you know, when's he coming up? And he's coming up. When he comes up, he's coming up for good. So where's his spot? Because that's going to be in the top 6 too. So it's a good problem to have, but, you know, seeing Gage get his flowers a little bit is pretty cool too.
It's National Bagel Day, and so we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Brandon Hagel and what he brings to the table for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, no surprise that he made Team Canada, and I thought it was pretty funny how you'd see some of these rosters and he wasn't on there. And I'm like, do you guys even watch hockey? I mean, what he was able to do 5-on-5 last year, as many points as pretty much anybody not named Leon Draisaitl, right? This guy is just incredible. He's getting some power play action now. We know how dogged it is on the PK with Anthony Cirelli, but just watching Brandon Hagel, and I don't know if you saw the new commercial with him with Pepsi.
Yeah.
How great is that, man? I mean, Brandon Hagel, you bring him in, you know, a couple of years ago and you trade, and I just remember his first day with the Lightning, and he just looked like he had these big old eyes. He had no idea what was going on. And, you know, he's been through a lot, obviously, with the concussions and the whole thing. But man, he is such an important part of this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Like, he really is. I think he is the guy that he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He just sets the tone for them. And what can you say about a guy like Brandon Hagel? He really is. He's one of the best players in the league.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, one day he'll get credit for it. I think that, you know, a little bit of it is the guys he plays with, you know, like you have the Gensels, the Points, the Kucherovs, and it's very, and you see the guys, it's very easy to overlook Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. And I think on a national scope, that's what's happened. But when you look at and you watch the Lightning play every day, there's no doubt how important both of those guys are in 5-on-5, on the power play, and especially, you know, on the penalty kill, but just the pace that they bring, you know, like those guys are so valuable. And Higgs is a little bit more of like that emotional leader as well. You know, like he's a guy that I love it when I actually think that he's brought out a little bit of that edge in Jake Gensel. You know, like you see the way these guys are yapping across the penalty box at other teams and everything like that. That game in San Jose when, you know, they're going at it with Ryan Reeves, you know, across the penalty box. And it's like, you know, it's just like this team is in a lot of ways, like I've always wondered, you know, down the line, and obviously he's with this organization, going to be with the organization for a long time, is like, you know, we've seen him wear the A when some of the, you know, the alternates and, you know, and Victor Hedman's been out. But, you know, in a lot of ways, he's such a leader for this team with the way that he brings that passion. And part of it is his story, you know, like he'll be the first to tell you that he's one of these guys that never thought he would be playing for Team Canada, that, you know, he was a 6th-round pick, you know, the Sabres never signed him, you know, he's always played with a chip on his shoulder. And you see that in the way he plays. You know, he has just such a level of pace, adrenaline, and edge to him. You know, again, like, you know, when you build winning teams, those are guys that are super important because of all the other stuff that they bring. And again, and it's not that Brandon Hagel doesn't have the numbers. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was him and Draisaitl who had the most, you know, even strength goals, you know, in the league last year. You know, and so it's not like he's not putting up numbers, but he also just has an ability to perform in the biggest situations, you know, and when they need something, he's there to provide it. And, you know, going back to, you know, some of the stuff with the way the organization works is when, you know, you mentioned when they first traded for him, they had a plan for him, but we saw him in very much a different role. Like we saw him on a third line role and a checking role on that team that went to the final. And, but they wanted to gradually integrate him into what he's become today and just kind of let him find his own, you find your own peak, and that's what he's done. But, they were by no means, they spent three first round draft picks and, a couple NHL players, a bunch of stuff to get him. And he was playing on in a checking line role on a team that was, he didn't get that power play time. He was obviously on the PK, but, they had a plan for him, and you kind of see it all come to fruition now. They do such a good job at pro scouting to find these guys. And I think, when you look at the player that Brandon Hagel's become, what they gave up for him in a lot of ways is going to be a deal. And in a lot of ways, the contract that they've put him on for the next, into the next decade is definitely a deal. So, but yeah, I mean, going back to the whole Team Canada stuff, it's like, we know how Coop creates a team. We know how Team Canada knows how to build a team too. And, it's not just Coop, it's, Doug Armstrong. I think, Julie made it clear that Doug Armstrong is the one that makes the final decisions as a, Team Canada GM. But, those guys who are playing minutes, defending 1-goal leads, the guys who are playing on PKs, especially when, in the Olympics, when maybe, those special teams moments are magnified. Those are players that win games for you. And then you add on the just the emotional leadership element that guys like that carry. We get lost in the whole like Bedard and, everything like, great. Like, does Connor Bedard deserve to be on Team Canada? Absolutely, for sure. But like, at the end of the day, like, you've got to have players like Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel to help you win games. And I think, that's, you see it, and you don't just see it on Team Canada, you see it on a lot of these different teams. I mean, Pontus Holmberg made Team Sweden. I was talking to him, and he might play a power play role for Team Sweden. We saw him on the PK2 today, and even a power play role for him too. So, there's guys that, Pontus Holmberg's a guy that when he has the puck on a stick, you're not getting it away from him. You just kind of hope that you can get in front of him, and he's a big reason why that line's done really well too, as a pace line that just hems other teams in. But you need players that do different things to help you win games.
Do you think the Lightning make a move at the deadline? Because I feel like Julian always does something, right? So that's what I default to. My default is, well, he always does something. And when it doesn't look like he can do anything, he does something. And a couple of years ago, we did probably not going to do anything. He brings in Dumba and Duclair. But I don't know. And we know what the salary cap situation is like. They're going to try to accrue some after the Olympics, but a lot of it is probably going to be money in, money out, right?
Right.
But what does this team need? If you look at this team right now, Ed, what does this team need? Because I look at it, the power play is, some of the things that you've been able to maybe criticize this team for this year was the lack of the power play. But other than that, like, they have scoring depth. The defense is doing well, and you're going to get guys back. You're not changing anything with the goaltending situation. Your PK is good, right? So it's just like you look around, it's like, what does this team need? They're scratching guys, right? So they're bringing guys up. They're physical. They can go the Douglas Sabrin route if you want to go. Jack Finley is a guy that can win draws and play bottom 6 minutes. Like, I don't know if there's any glaring holes on the Tampa Bay Lightning right now.
As I said right now, I don't think there are. Right. I think that, and obviously things change. We could sit here 2 weeks from now and, PK struggling, there's some 5-on-5 issues, there's some injuries, whatever it is. But obviously we've seen them overcome a lot of these injuries as well. And, the big question I think is like, how do you fit these guys in when they come back, and, teams do look at, I think I asked Julian, it says like, do you look at, the guys coming back almost as acquisitions to your lineup? Because, all of a sudden you're getting Hedman, McDonough, guys like that back. And he really didn't answer that way. And obviously Julian will always, I feel like every year I've covered him at least, he always says, don't have your hopes up, but he always kind of figures something out. And things always happen too. I mean, like, let's not forget that, if Mikhail Sergachev doesn't have an injury a couple of years ago, to be able to create some of that LTIR space, they're not able to go out and get, Duclair and Dumba, and that team clearly had a lot more needs, I think the one thing that's been amazing throughout it all is the way that they've really created that forward depth. Like they remind me a lot of, the teams that the Lightning took to the cup. And to be honest, as far as rolling four lines, the ones that the Florida had to make the cup and win it, so you have that forward depth. You have guys doing different roles, doing different things. You have guys, you've got, the skill lines, you've got the checking lines, you've got the energy lines, you've got it all. So, but again, I think, as we sit right now, it's kind of as weird as it sounds, because once, we hit the Olympics, it's right there. But like, after we come back from the Olympics, it's right there as far as the deadline goes. Right now, you really don't, you really don't know. And again, the big thing that Breezeball says, you don't know what's out there either, because there's so many teams that have, I think we've seen a little bit of separation, but still, like, teams are by no means are becoming, sellers, but now we're, in the next, couple of weeks, we'll see how it plays out. But it's tough, because I really don't see it. And we picked this team apart so much, and I really don't see a weakness. And even the power play, like I said, like I have confidence that the power play might not be a top 5 unit, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be good. It's in down the stretch and going into the playoffs. And I think and even some of the guys that they've scratched over the past few weeks, like those are guys that are deserving of time. So you got guys like Dominic James and Des too, who weren't even a part of this like a few months ago. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I think the way I'd answer is like, it's kind of too early to tell right now. And then we'll see, as something always happens. Again, like there's been times when Julian's like, we're not going to make a trade, and then they make a trade. But that's because they're so good at like adapting on the fly. And that's where the scouting comes in. They had big meetings in Philly he brought in all the pro scouts up there, and they had, I think, 2 or 3 days of meetings and kind of starting to kind of get a list together of guys who maybe are targets, who potentially could be targets. So but yeah, I think that's one of the things, that they're so well prepared for this stuff, that when stuff happens, they have a plan A, plan B, plan C when it comes to. But I think right now, it's just kind of wait and see, because I don't see any glaring weaknesses on this team.
And before I let you go, I mean, obviously you're hearing more and more news about the outdoor game, the Stadium Series game. What has kind of stood out to you? And we know Tim McGraw is going to be performing there, and we're seeing more and more. We saw the social media post with the tent. You've been all over it, doing a great job of make sure everybody out there subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times today, TampaBay.com/sports, everything that Ed's got going on over there. Eddie in the Yard on social media. So what excites you, man? What is something that really stands out to you as far as what's going on with this outdoor game?
I think there's a couple things. One, I do think that and after covering the game in Nashville, you kind of saw this, but like I do think that the league works really hard to kind of make the game representative of the city, right? And just kind of have that flavor and everything like that. And I think that as great as it is to like really have this game for the fans and everything like that, like I think that it's going to really give a really cool perspective to people, whether they're coming from outside into the game, or Tampa people who transplants, whatever, of really what Tampa's about, just because how much they're really pairing this up with Gasparilla. And from what I've heard, like you're going to have floats on the field and stuff like that and everything like that. And I think that's one thing. And then obviously the big thing, I think, over-encompassing is just how they're going to get this done. Like I think they all still have questions, even the people who are very confident in this, of like this tent and how it's going to come down. And once it comes down, like what happens, and it is going to be a kind of a wait and see moment. But I think after 44 outdoor games, like anything is going to get, you're going to try to find different things to bring people in. I think in Tampa, you definitely have that inherent thing of like, you almost want to watch it because you want to see, what happens. And, but again, like I do have faith in the league and everything, the ice, team that builds the things, and, to see some of the videos and to listen to some of the people talk about everything that's gone into this, from this notion of like, are you crazy, 5-6 years ago, to like, yeah, this is really exciting, but still knowing that there's some inherent risk there. It's one of those kind of like, and this is the way the league, I think, is, embracing it too. It's like, tune in and find out kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, so it'd be fun to be there and everything like that. And the league does, like being in the Winter Classic, the league does a great job of putting on an event. Like it's, and there's so many people behind the scenes that go into it and everything like that. And I think the fans, however they decide to do the arrivals thing, that's a great thing. Like the thing in Miami was great, So, and Nashville is great too, with the way the Lightning came in on the trolley wearing Canadian tuxedos, So I think it's just the whole spectacle of it's great. Obviously, the hockey game too, like the hockey part of it, like the Winter Classic, a perfect example. You have all this hoopla when Miami's excited, then the Rangers go out to a 3-0 lead. It takes the air out of the building real quick.
Yeah.
But those are important 2 points no matter what, because it's a division team too. So, but I just say I think it's fun because it's, you just got to tune in and see.
Are we going to be in the press box, you think?
I think so. I don't think there'd be anything else, and which kind of sucks, because that press box and Ray James, it's down in the corner, and it's a closed window box and everything like that. I remember in Nashville, it took a little bit. It's 50-yard line, but it was still like the windows are closed, so like it kind of takes a little bit out of it a little bit. So I think it's one of those things where like we're gonna have to kind of go out there and be out there for a little bit and kind of take in all the sounds and sights and everything like that too during the game.
Are they going to fire the cannons at Ray J when the Lightning score?
I would assume. I don't know that for sure, but I assume they would. I think they would do that. I think you might hear more than one cannon.
Oh, I like that, buddy. What can everybody find right now on TampaBay.com for the Tampa Bay Times?
Well, we've got some stuff. We did something on Gage. We mentioned some of that stuff. Obviously, I working on something today on Nick Paul. Obviously, we see with the point injury, we've seen him kind of move into a top line center role. Another guy that just super a guy who can play a lot of different roles. Like that line with him and Bjorkstrand and James is not your typical fourth line, and they embraced that role. They did the job, and now with Point out, you got him kind of moving up there into a role that he's used to, and he can play wing, he can play center. Nick Paul can do it all. So got that coming, and then just kind of get some looking forward towards the outdoor game a little bit, and some of the stuff that we can kind of continue to expect to see. And then some stuff coming up, not this week, but the Olympic stuff. We got some great one great thing I got about which is great when you're on the road, you're covering games that Vasi doesn't play in. Like Vasi has a nice work day, and you can talk to him for on the road, and he was telling me some great stuff about him growing up in Russia, playing outdoors, and him and his brother. I won't give too much of away, but the reason I asked him was because in the Winter Classic, I remember Bobrovsky's talking about how in Russia growing up and playing outdoors, and it was -30, and that's Celsius, so it's like probably like -15 like Fahrenheit, still, right? But how much like that was a part of growing up, and Vasi had some really great stuff about like talking about growing up there, him and his brother obviously super close, and just how like almost the outdoor rink was kind of a babysitter for you, that you're and that just stuff like that. So doing some of this reporting, listening, hearing the guys kind of tell some of these stories is really cool, and kind of you kind of patch the reporting together as you go along. But so some of that stuff's coming too as well.
The great Ed Encina, Tampa Bay Times. Make sure you sign up for the Tampa Bay Times today. Come on, man. If you don't have it, get it for somebody. You want to be able to support local. The way to do it, the Tampa Bay Times. Ed is on a heater this season for the 25-26 Lightning year. It's a special season, and Ed has got you covered, taking these road trips, giving you stories that you're not going to get anywhere else. Eddie in the Yard on Twitter/X. You're the man, Ed. Thank you, buddy. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week. Throwing up the ones, the one and only Ed Encina, our favorite Encina. Just don't tell Raleigh and don't tell Shannon. We love the entire Encina family. They are the best. What a show today, man. I'm telling you, we touched on a little bit of everything on the program. Bucks, USF, Lightning. We are here for you always. Tomorrow, a very special show. We are going to be live from Al Lang Stadium, Tampa Bay Rowdies. They have one of their final practices before the big thing with the media and the public tomorrow. So rowdysoccer.com, head on over there, all the information. I'll be live from Al Lang tomorrow, and joining us at 12:05, she's feeling better. The one and only Trisha Whitaker will join us on the program. We got a couple other irons in the fire as well. So it should be fun. A big thank you to our partners, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, as well as Evara Health. Our guest today, Tim Benz from Pittsburgh, also Evara Health, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, and the great Eddie Encina as well. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I'm everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. This has been a really fun show. It's been a really great week, and I can't do this without you guys. I love you all. Everybody have a wonderful Thursday. Bundle up. Now the sun's coming out. This is Tampa Bay weather for you, man. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the J.